Welcome to Simply Caroline, a podcast dedicated to women empowerment where we will discuss a bunch of different subjects such as life, parenting, love, business, money, relationships, healing, recovery, addiction, entrepreneurship, and so much more. A podcast I'll do my best to keep simple, fun, and relatable and bring you tools to help you better your life. So thank you for being here. And here's your host, myself, Caroline Blanchard.
Happy 2023. How crazy is this? The new year. And to start the year, beautifully, I invited one of my dear friends, Lissa Figgins. How are you?
I am so good. And I'm so excited that I just love fresh starts. So this is such a fun way to start off the new year and just really get ready for all that's going to happen.
Yes. So Lissa is the person that, I had the privilege to meet, we crossed paths. And I'm telling you, I've been looking at stuff, quite a few things very differently. Lissa is super determined, and she has a way to make us understand how important it is to, plan our life and really have a vision. And for me, like, you were a game changer. So thank you, Lissa. But I'll let you tell us a little bit, like, what is it that you do? Besides being awesome, what is it that you do?
Well, I try working on that every day too. It's just so interesting because I have conversations with women all the time from all different parts of the world. And when I ask women, how's life lately? Do you know what I hear 99% of the time? I hear the word busy or some form of that, right? Oh, life is busy. Oh, always busy. Oh, there's so much going on. There's always something. My plate is full, like those types of things. And so when I start noticing, a similar answer coming over and over and over again, I lean in and I really get curious and I start asking questions. And so when I started noticing this pattern, I started asking a couple questions. The first one I just asked was like, is this normal? And really, the more that I started hearing it, I realized it's become the norm for sure, right? Because I feel like it doesn't matter, like if I talk to women in different stages of life, ones who are moms with kids at home, ones who have kids that are out of the house, even women who aren't married and don't have kids yet, it just feels like everyone feels busy and like life is just always moving at this fast speed and we're just trying to keep up with it. And then the second question I started asking was, is this desirable? Because what's really interesting is another question I love asking is, what would your magic wand day look like? So like if I could wave a magic wand over your day and you could make it whatever you wanted, what would that include? And it's really interesting because there is not 1 ounce of busy in that response, right? And so I start looking at this going, okay, so this is what, in a perfect world we would love, but yet this complete opposite is our everyday reality. Wow, how frustrating is that? How like just discouraging that is to get up every day and just, try to keep up with the rat race that's going on around us. And, the last question I started asking is this sustainable? Can we really keep going at this pace? And I think we keep pushing, right, the edge of what we can do and how much we can fit into our 24 hours and what technology can do in our lives and all these things. And yet, if you look around, we are seeing more stress on relationships than ever. We're seeing more stress in the workplace, right? Or in businesses than ever. We're seeing more stress in finances than ever. We're seeing more stress in people's wellness, right? Whether it's physical wellness, because your body reflects what's going on inside, but really in that mental wellness place and in how we're feeling about ourselves and about our lives and all of that. And then I think it's really having an impact on like us even just having fun in life and enjoying things because we're so stressed out, right? We're so distracted and pulled in a million directions at once. We don't feel like we really have time for that. And so my heart really just got to that place of saying, okay, so what's going to make the shift? And how can we start using our time differently? Because we can't fabricate more time, right? We still only have 24 hours in a day, 365 days in a year. Like that's not ever going to change. And yet you look at some people and, they may be able to get a lot accomplished in the day, but may not love how their life feels, and it's really about that combination of things. It's not just, I want to do more, but it's, I want to be more. And it comes down to, I want to be more present because that's what I feel like, especially as women, we have this longing to truly be present with who and what matters most. And when we're just busy all the time, we're distracted. We're going in a million directions at once. Right? Can you relate to that? Is that, am I speaking to what life might be like on your end too, as well?
Can I relate to that 100%? Not as much now, honestly, because I did do conscious changes, and I'm running my life differently.
Right.
But I do remember 10 years ago, like the absolute rat race. And for me, it ended with a burnout, which unfortunately, unfortunately, a lot of people need to hit the wall very hard to start changing things. And the thing is, like, you don't need to hit the wall to start changing things. You just have to be conscious of, like, okay, what's going on? I really need, a break somewhere. And which is funny. Like, I was listening to you and you're talking about busy, and our daydream, our dream day would be like to not be busy. I've scheduled myself purposely, like days that I would be like, okay, this is a day that I take for me. And I was so burnt out that I would just sit there and be like, what do I do now? And, my sense of value and validation was all into the everything that I was doing and the busyness that I had. So when I actually had time off, I didn't know what to do with myself. And it was not even that enjoyable because I didn't feel like I was accomplishing or I was being something, because for me it was all it was a definition of being lazy and unproductive and all of this. So I think that there is, like, especially, well, I'm going to say especially mothers because it's my situation. So I'm going to talk about my situation. But we attach, I find, a lot of our worthiness to everything that we do. So that when we slow down, we have the impression of, not being enough.
Yeah.
And, I know that there's a lot of different things in there. Your sense of worthiness should not come with the busy schedule. It's completely unrelated. And I like that you did address that because, at some point the rat race has to stop, and you can be just as great of a mom, just as great of a businesswoman, great as a person, but just learning how to manage it all. And I love how you manage your schedule. So talk a bit about that.
Wow. Well, it's always a work in progress, right? And I want to say something to what you just shared and just share some of my experience. Like, I think for me, I was just like you. I didn't really know my value outside of what I was doing. And so when I stopped doing, like I didn't know who I was, just like you were sharing. And that was kind of a scary thing. And now we're at a place where we have an empty nest. And so, all of a sudden there aren't a whole bunch of kids to be caring for on a regular basis. I mean, we're still connected to them and supporting them in what they're doing, right, in life. But now life looks really different. And I'm looking across, the kitchen table at just my husband, and we're getting to know each other in a new way again without, kids around and things like that. And so, yeah, I would just encourage anyone listening, like, don't wait to push pause and get to know who you are and what makes you tick and what fills you up and what your passions are, and start leaning into those and developing those, because that makes a big difference. And I know the other thing for me too is there was this time in my life when I had some really hard things going on. And for me, it was easier to like keep busy because then I could like keep that hard stuff like at arm's distance, right? Because I didn't have to like stop and be quiet with my own thoughts and my hurt and my pain and my disappointment and things like that. And so sometimes I used busy just as a way of coping with difficult things, which didn't fix anything. It just made me feel better in the moment that I didn't have to deal with that, right? And so, it can look so different for so many people. And
you know what? I'm just going to interject here a second, but it's also a cultural thing. It seems like when someone is asking you, how is everything going? And you're like, oh, busy. Then it seems like, how can I was going to say you're someone, but that's so wrong. But that's how it felt when I was saying it before. I was just like, oh, crazy busy. This one has this one has that, this one has that, and my work and this and that. So it seemed like the more that I had to do in one day, the more, the more of someone I was.
Yeah, significance, right?
Yeah, significance. But
here's what's so interesting is that, like it just keeps getting more and more, right? And I think oftentimes, okay, I just lost my train of thought as to what I was going to connect onto what you were saying. We, like you said, we tie our significance to that. Oh, I know, I was going to say, we wear it like a badge of courage,
Yeah.
right? It's like thinking like, oh, I'm this martyr, right? I'm this mom, I'm a business owner, I'm a wife, I'm a community, volunteer, I'm a leader, all these things. And we wear it like this badge of honor. And yet it's so interesting because I want you to remember, like, if your listeners are in the ages, the stage of life that you and I are, you remember those things that used to hang on the wall and they had a cord attached to them called a phone that wasn't in your pocket all day, right? Like it was on the wall. But here's the thing about those. I mean, I some days would love to go back to that where it wasn't on me at all times and people didn't have access to me or I didn't have access to a whole bunch of information and distractions. But think about that. When that phone was on the wall, right? If you wanted to call somebody, you pick it up, you dial their number, and if they were already on the other line, they were doing something else with somebody else on their phone, you would get a busy signal. And so what that told you was this person doesn't have time for me right now, right? And there was nothing you could do about it except hang up the phone because you can't
There was no
change that.
voicemail either.
Exactly, right. Back in the day, before you could like send them to voicemail, and at one point they got really creative and they let us like click over, right? Do you remember that, where you could like be on a call and then you could click over to another call?
Yeah,
and then
that was called a second line.
yeah, but don't hit that button too many times. You're going to hang up on everybody, right? but here's the question I want to ask, and I've been asking this myself. When we say the B word, that's what I'm going to call it, right? What are we telling to the people and things that matter most, right? When I tell my friend, oh, life is busy, I'm basically telling her, I don't have time for you. I have so many other things that I'm doing. When I say to my family, and maybe I don't say the words per se to my family, I'm busy, but when they see me like just in busy mode, like just asking yourself, what am I communicating about my availability to the people and things that I say matter most, right? I'm saying to them, I'm not available. And guess what? If you call somebody enough times and it's always busy, you don't keep calling them, right? Like it's not worth your time. You're like, I'm going to go elsewhere. And so I think we have to really be careful of what message that is sending to those people and things that, that we really do care about. And so be like really asking, is busy what I want to define my life? Is this what I want to be known for? Is this what I want people to think about me? Oh, Lissa, she's the busy girl. Like, no, I want people, like, I want to be less available to things that are less important so I can be more available to the people and things that are more important, right? Like, I really think that's what it's all about.
Sorry, how do you gauge that, Lissa?
Wow, that's a great question because there's not like, it's not like an easy, an easy way to measure that. But I think, there's so many different things. Number one, you can look at, how much time am I spending with my family or with my friends, with these people that I say matter? And when I'm with them, am I fully present? Because I think that's the other thing. We are all guilty of being with our family or with a loved one, a significant other or whatever, a friend, and we're sitting there, right? Texting, scrolling, searching, whatever. Like back in the day, you went out to dinner, like you didn't have a phone that was in your pocket because it was attached to your wall back home, so you were fully present with them. So I think that's really a place where you can look. This may be a scary thing to do, but I really think if you really want to know, ask the people that are closest to you that matter the most to you. Do you feel like I'm available to you? And I'm just going to say right now, you probably will not like the answer, but that's okay. Because sometimes we just need to hear it from someone else and maybe kind of lean in a little bit and find out what would that look like for you? Like, how can I be more available? Because you do matter to me. And of course, just like with, if you're looking at your finances and you want to know where your money is going, look at your bank account. We're looking at our time. You want to know where your time is going? Look at your calendar. And if you don't keep a paper calendar or a digital calendar, I'm a huge proponent of paper because there's a big difference between the two, then I dare you to, for a day, a couple of days, or a week, keep track of every like 30 minutes to an hour what you do. It's just like a food diary. When you have to write down every single thing you put in your mouth, you think about it more, right? And you're only going to put in your mouth what you really is going to give you the result you want. And so that can be a really good way to look at, where does my time go all day long? And then once you see where it's going, now you can start changing it, because awareness is always the first step, right?
Yeah, and for me, like one place that in 2022, actually. I've always been a person who does a budget,
Mm,
and somehow I always have to make it work at the end of the month because even though if everything was budgeted, there's still stuff that goes sideways. So don't ask me why, but in my mind, it's like I'm doing my budget, I'm following it. And anyway, in 2022, someone really smart told me, well, track your finances. So that
mm,
means not do a budget like I do. Really go in your bank account, look at every witdraw, take
mm.
1 month, look at every witdraw and allocate it to where it goes, and do the same thing with your credit card. And most of us now have more than one. So you see $20 here, $20 there. You think it's all small. But
Yeah.
when you start, anyway, I'm going to be honest, I was budgeting $1,000 a month for groceries.
Mhm.
I was spending 1,900.
Mhm.
No
Right. You're
wonder.
wondering why you're ending up upside down, right?
Yeah. And it was all those $20, those this, that. So it just showed me that, yeah, I'm budgeting, but I'm not even budgeting aligned with really, what we're spending. And I know that some listener will say, like, well, you must have a lot of money if your grocery was double and you didn't realize it. And it's not even the point. I was just moving money from one place to the other, not understanding why sometimes I was short there
Mm,
and why sometimes I couldn't save. But it,
right.
it was just, my point to this is that I've done a budget forever and I thought I was really aligned, but there's also like taking a real inventory of what's happening. And
Mhm.
for me, it was easy, it's finance. But like you say, if you start going and taking the inventory on, relationships,
Mm,
family, all of
yeah.
this, yeah, we may not like the answer, it may end up like a brutal answer like mine for groceries, but now I readjusted everything and it works so much better.
Yeah. And now you're more aware. And so you're making more purposeful choices because you can see where it's been going. And I love that you brought the finance piece because your time and your money are both resources, right? And so you have a choice with resources. So whether it's time or money, you can spend them, right? And usually that's just money out the window. Like, yeah, we're spending a little bit here, a little bit there. And like you said, it just kind of adds up. Yes, you may get some cute sweater, or there may be, a meal that you ate or whatever. So, but there's really not a whole lot long term that you're getting back for that. Versus if you invest your money, right? If you invest in something that is going to give you a high percentage return rate, you are now like building into your future. And the same thing happens with our time. We can spend our time, right? Because it's going to go somewhere. We can't avoid it. Time will go somewhere, right? So we can spend it on things that really don't matter, or we can invest it in things that do, that are going to move us towards this life that we want. And I think the biggest thing we have to struggle against is this box, this rectangle thing that we carry around all day long, right? 2,617 times we interact with this thing on average a day is out of control. So if you have ever said, and I'm raising my hand, I don't have time, or if I had time, right? Even if you're not the average of 2,617, number one, you may be above average. So, wow, that's huge. Even if it was like half of that, what if you interacted with your phone 1,000 times a day? How much time are you giving to this? And what are you getting out of it? Is that time spent? Or is that time invested in who you are becoming and what you want to grow in your life? And so I think this is going to be one of the keys in 2023 is how we are interacting with our phone and when we're not, right? And making sure we put healthy boundaries around that because it starts affecting all those other areas of our life. Because,
Yeah.
the more you're on, the more you're buying on Amazon, the more you're buying on Target or whatever, right? It's like back in the day, you just said, don't go into the store if you don't want to spend the money. Well, now, yeah, don't go on the app. Don't go on the website if you don't want to spend the money or spend the time.
I've done all my Christmas shopping without even getting out of my house.
I
So
know,
yeah, I'm
right? Which
guilty.
can be really convenient, right? So I'm not saying like anti-technology, never use it. Yes, if it's going to save you time and money and energy and you can do it that way, amazing. But I think so many of us are abusing how much access we have and not paying attention to how it's drawing us away from
Yeah.
everything else.
And there's one thing that I also like that you said, and I would be scared sometimes to ask my kids. Maybe I should do the exercise of like, am I available enough? But it's
Mm,
funny because, and that's not the right word again. It's ironic because 11 years ago, I decided to leave corporate
Mm.
and work from home because I wanted to spend more time with my kids. And my little one was only like 2 or 3. And I didn't want her to be raised in the daycare. And I wanted to be able to pick them up after school every single day, drop them off. So anyway, long story short, I did change my career path and I reorganized everything to be at home. But you know, now that I'm getting more educated and more aware on all of this, I'm wondering, did I really spend more time? Because I
Mhm.
remember all these times that they were at the park and I was on my phone.
Mm.
And because I had my business to work. So I did spend physically, I was here, and yes, physically I would pick them up and stuff like that. But there are a lot of those times that my brain was still not there, or I was not emotionally present because I was so, consumed by something else going on. And that's what I find beautiful in the last year that I really started working on is to not only plan your time, because you can plan your time and you can have it down to the minute
Mhm.
in your agenda, but still not be in the moment.
Mhm.
Thinking like, oh, well, while I'm picking her up, I can do this call. And like, how many business conversations did my kids actually listen to? My
Right.
daughter, when she was about 6, could have pitched you my business because she knew it inside out.
She could
Yeah.
have said it in her sleep, right? Yeah.
And it's fun, yeah, because she started telling me terms and she was too young to know them. And I was just like, how come you know that? She's like, well, mom, you talk about it. And that had made me realize, like, wow,
Right. Yeah.
she hears a lot. So thank God it was good things. But
Right.
uh,
Right.
point is, you know, it's difficult to be in the moment. And you're right, those phones,
Mhm.
as much as I love them, as much as they do steal our attention.
Mhm.
So how do we get more present in the moment, Lissa?
Yeah, well, I think really it comes down to deciding what really matters. And I want to say one thing before I kind of go into a few steps that your listeners can take, and that is beware of guilt, right? Because guilt can come in because we feel an obligation that we should have or could have or whatever done something, right? Or it can come from the people around us. So maybe even let's tweak the question of asking people around us, like, have I been available enough? What would it look like if I was available to you? Like, what would that look like versus a rating, right? That may make us feel less than. So then it gives us something to move towards, because I think that's really what the key is if I'm just feeling attacked by the expectations, the obligations, and all the things, I'm going to just wallow in that guilt and kind of go, well, what's the point? Because I'm never going to do this perfect anyway, right? But really what I think I want to do is you want to start moving towards what you really want. What do you want your faith walk to look like? What do you want your family relationships to look like? Your friendships? What do you want your field of, work, whether that's a business or a career or a side gig, or maybe it's just service in your community? What do you want that to look like? What do you want your finances to look like? How do you want to feel when you sit down to pay your bills each month? When you sit down and go, oh my goodness, I had more this month come in than I had going out. Like, how good would that feel, right? And I'm investing in things for the future. And how do you want your wellness to look, mentally and physically? And how do you want your enjoyment of life to look? And really creating that bigger picture and that vision. And so I call that step one. I call that reflection, right? We have to look at, first of all, yes, we have to know where we are, right? But then just as quickly, we want to turn and we want to kind of get that big picture and say, where am I going? Because just like when you get on a bicycle, you have to be looking ahead at the goal where you're going. If you just sit in one place, you're always looking back, your bike will fall over. You will not be able to balance, and that's not going to be very enjoyable. And it probably is going to be a little painful. So I think it's really important to spend that a little bit of time doing that reflection and thinking back and just to see where you are, but then looking ahead to see where you want to go. The second step then is your intentions, right? So once you have that big picture, right, now you start saying, okay, so this is what I want my family life to look like, whether it's my marriage or my parenting or my relationship with my kids or with my grandkids or with my aging parents or, whatever it is. What are like 1, 2, or 3 things that I can start doing that are going to move me in that direction? Right? Because you're not going to go from 0 to 60 in an instant. So it's going to take steps, right? And it's going to take a series of steps. And so getting really specific around what that could look like so that you can actually measure, yes, am I doing that? So that's a way you can start measuring, is by creating the right kinds of action steps or goals or outcomes or whatever you want to call them that are specific, that are measurable, that are accountable, that are realistic, and that are time bound so that you can actually do them. Instead of saying, I want to have a better marriage. Well, what does that look like? Right. For me right now, that means I'm sitting down and having dinner, no phone zone. Right. So this has been a struggle for my husband because YouTube does not get to come to the table anymore. The phones have to stay over there. Right. So we can just talk and connect in all of that over dinner time. So that's one step I can take a day, and there are other ones I can do. So really declaring like, what are my intentions in this area and getting specific with it. And then the next one is going to be implementation. So how am I going to keep this in front of me on a daily basis? Because I think you're right. Like beginning of the year, right? I mean, we're here in the first week of January. Everybody's going strong with all those resolutions that, that they said when they raised their glass to the new year, this is what I'm going to do. But guess what's going to happen? By January 17th, statistically, about 70% of people will already have fallen away from any goal, resolution, whatever you want to call it, right? Intention that they set at the new year, not even 3 weeks in, right? And it takes a minimum of 21 days to really make something a habit. Really, it's more like 66 and can go all the way up to almost a year to truly make something a habit. So now you have to say, how do I keep this in front of me? Just like in the bike, right? You're always looking at where you're going. So how do I keep this vision of where I'm going in front of me? And how do I keep like measuring my steps towards that? And that's going to come from a couple of things. So one, I was sharing with you earlier how I have recorded my vision for each area of my life on my phone. So here's a good use of your phone. Okay. So you can use something called, most people have a voice. I think it's called the voice app or voice memo or something like that. So just record yourself and saying it like it's already happened, right? And so just describe, what does your faith walk look like? Your family, your friends, your field of work, your finances, your fitness, and your fun. Those are 7 F's, right? And then I listen to that in the morning when I'm getting ready, because that's just downtime anyway, right? That's time I literally am looking myself in the mirror and doing my makeup or doing my hair or getting dressed. And so I've got this in my ear, and I'm over and over again hearing my vision for my life in these different areas. And I recorded mine I think it was last March, in March of 2022. And I'm going to re-record it now here in the new year, because so many things that are in there have already happened and have already started, coming true. And as I hear things, it prompts me, like it gets my brain thinking about like, what can I do today about that? How can I make this, a step that I'm taking? What am I doing about that? Oh my gosh, so I don't go a day without listening to it. So that way it keeps it fresh. And then I'm a huge proponent of plan your day the night before and decide, what are my big three for the day, right? Like, what are the 3 things I'm going to do tomorrow that are moving me towards this life that I want, and have a way that you can literally measure them and check them off, right? So here's where I'm a recovering to-do list girl. I don't do to-do lists anymore, but I do my intentions list, right? Where I'm saying, these are the things that really matter, and I'm going to measure and make sure that I take care of those in my day. And if I do more than that, great. And if not, that's okay too. I still know that I'm moving. So you have to have some kind of measure.
The thing is, like 2-3 things a day is realistic. And the thing that you're saying, recovering to-do list girl, I kind of laugh, but it's true.
They're like this long, right?
Yeah, we have like our 62 items every single day, and then you go to bed like beating yourself up, like, how come I didn't do that? Well, because it's not realistic. And if you set up yourself for failure, you will fail. But 3 things is realistic though.
Yeah. And I want to go back to something you asked earlier. How can you be present in the moment? And here's one thing I've learned. When I identify what my important things are for the day, number one, I try and do them as early in the day as possible, right? When my energy is fresh, my attention is fresh, I don't have as many distractions and, things around me that are pulling at me. The other thing is that I don't do a to-do list anymore either, because it was this list that was crazy long. It was just, I literally would like carry it around all week and keep adding to it. And then like, eventually I had this pile of lists, and I finally just threw them all away. I was like, if I haven't gotten to this, it apparently is not important. So what I do is I brain dump things, because there is value in getting out of your head, getting onto paper. I don't number it, because I'm just writing it down the order I think of it, which does not mean it's the order it needs to be done, right? Because so then I'll go back and prioritize. But then what I do, if something is important, I will take it off that brain dump list and I will give it a space on my calendar, right? So for example, this is a silly example, but like laundry, okay? I don't want to have to think about washing, drying, folding, and putting away laundry every single day. Like that literally would just make me feel like I'm never done with laundry. Now, that being said, I don't have little babies anymore that are, constantly, soiling things and things like that. But so for me, my laundry happens on Saturday morning. So guess what? I'm not thinking about the laundry when I'm working on my business on Monday. I'm not thinking about the laundry when I'm having, lunch with my daughter on Tuesday. I'm not thinking about the laundry when I'm, serving at church on Wednesday. I'm not thinking about the laundry on date night on Friday, right? When it comes to Saturday, now I'm thinking about it. So I think that when we decide what's important and then we can give it a space in our calendar to live, now I don't have to worry about it until that time comes because I've already created healthy boundaries around that. So now I can be fully present in what's in front of me right now. And I think that's really, really key. We just keep this running like to-do list in our head or on paper, and then we feel like we're never done. And there's always something on our mind that we probably should get to or whatever. And then we feel guilt when we don't. And, it's kind of this cycle that keeps us distracted, right?
Yeah, no, and I like how you said brain dump because I'm a paper girl too. And if you're not, and if it's on your phone, just write it down in your notes. But when you get it out of your brain, and that I've been doing for years, when you get it out of your brain and you put it at a place where you're looking, so not on a post-it that you will put on the side of a mirror somewhere that you may cross or not, but when your brain knows there's this place where she writes everything, so everything important is there, I literally stop thinking about it. I have people who will ask me, what are you doing Thursday? I'm like, I don't know. I just need to look at my book.
It's over here. This is taking care of it. Yeah, which means you can fully show up on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with whatever those days hold, right?
Yeah, and some people find me a bit weird, or they're like, oh my gosh, you have zero memory, but I intentionally don't keep it there. I don't want everything, all the information to be there,
because then you can't focus on the things that matter, right? There's no more space for anything else. One of the things I love to do, I'm going to give this little free nugget to your listeners. When you brain dump, what you want to do is you want to apply the 4 Ds. The first one is delete. What can I delete off this list? Because this really, in the eternal scheme of things, does not have to be done. The world will not fall off its axis. Life is not going to completely crumble apart. It'd be nice if it was done, but you know what? It really, really doesn't matter. I can just cross that off. Okay. I guarantee there are things that are in your head that once they're on paper, you're like, yeah, I don't have to do this. Cross it off. Right. The second D is delegate. What are the things that do need to be done, but you're not the only person who has to do them? And I think so often, especially as women, especially as moms, especially, right, we're like, it's easier for me to do it. I can do it. We just keep juggling more and more balls. But really, could your kids do that? Could your spouse or significant other do that? Could a cleaning lady do that? Could a virtual assistant? Could, even a piece of technology or an app or something help to take that load off of you? Because you're not the only person in the world that can do that one thing, right? Because I think we try to take on the world. And then no wonder we have no time, right? And number 3 is delay. And I love delay because I'm looking at now what's on my list. I'm like, okay, this is important. And I am the person who needs to do this, but maybe right now is not the time. Like maybe right now, my focus needs to be here, right? Maybe right now, I just don't have the bandwidth to really give this my best time and attention. So I'm intentionally going to take that thing and place it over in this spot. Maybe it's a week from now. Maybe it's a month from now. Maybe it's a couple months from now. It's different than procrastinating. Procrastinating is, I know I need to do it. I should do it now. I just don't feel like it. I'm just going to keep putting it off, but nowhere specific. Just keep pushing it out of the way, right? Whereas this is, I'm intentionally saying, you know what? On Monday, I'm going to carve out an hour to work on this and give this my attention because I will not be distracted by these other things. And that's the time I can give it, right? And so I think that's really key too, is that not everything has to happen right now. So really looking at what can I delay to a time that would be better. And by doing that, now I can give my best time and attention to the things that do matter in this season, right, that I'm in. So that ultimately what's left on your list is number 4, which is what you delight in or what leads you to what you delight in, right? So I know I don't delight in the laundry per se, but I do delight in having nice clothes that are hanging in my closet. So when I want to get dressed in the morning, I'm not digging through a hamper or going to find it in the dryer. That is or, oh, I forgot and left it in the washer. It's not even dry yet. That's really frustrating, right? So yes, I will do the laundry. I've delegated my kids' laundry to them, so I don't have to do all that stuff or whatever. But, so yes, I will do those things as it's leading me to something that I delight in. And making sure that, like we talked about earlier, finding those things that do energize you and help you like bring out who you are and making sure those are on your list and that you're doing those, maybe not all the time, but kind of sprinkling some of those things in as well, because it's going to make a big difference in your motivation when it's something that you delight in.
And I want to touch one little thing that you said there, because that's something that I've struggled with like for years, and now finally letting go, because, well, I don't have a choice. I have adult kids on one hand,
Right.
and the other one, the last one, is super independent. But I never delegated laundry to my kids or cleaning to my kids. And I always, not always, but often complained about it. Like, oh, the house is dirty again, or I need to clean the house today, or, oh.
And somehow they're not picking up on your cues when you're like, oh, woe is me,
Yeah, exactly.
Then you're
But
frustrated.
on the other end, I was not passing on because it was kind of like my role as a mother. And I know now that it was also a part of me feeling worthy,
Right.
because I was needed. I had to do all of this, or the house would be dirty. I had to do all this, or no one had anything to wear, And I remember my son being like, can you show me how the washer works? I'm going to do a load of laundry. And I was just like, no, I'll do it for you. And he was just like, Mom, I just want to know how it works.
Sure.
So first of all, it's not, you don't prepare them well for the future when they will have to do all their things on their own. But also that is like something that you need to deal with yourself, because I realize with hindsight that have I delegated all of this, I would have had more time to be with myself. And that was probably also what I was avoiding. So to go back to your busyness thing, like you need to really ask yourself, why am I keeping myself this busy? And, your worthiness as a mother, as a spouse, as a worker, or as whatever role you have, is not necessarily in the busyness of what you do. And I find like this is a part sometimes we have a hard time letting go.
Right. Yeah.
But it's so liberating when you finally accept and let it go.
Yes. And you're right. Like, like in that situation you described, you're helping your son to prepare for life on his own, because eventually, the plan is that they will grow up and, you'll be out of a job as a mom at home and you'll be able to just love them as adult kids. Right. And so by helping show him how to do it, then you're giving him, that opportunity. And, so now you're giving him a gift, as well as now you're freeing up some time and energy to put in other things, just like with your money, right? Going back to your example, if I'm spending money on the drive-through every day just because it's convenient and I like it, okay, great. Nothing necessarily wrong with it. But now I don't have whatever that money is to really put into the things that do matter. And, and so it's really a matter of just prioritizing, where do I want to invest this and what's going to be the best use, of what that looks like. So
yeah,
I love that.
That's what I love about you, Lissa. You really help women to, get ourselves on the right track.
Well, it comes down to asking good questions, right? I think when we ask questions and we stop to say, how does life feel right now? And if you think busy or some version of it, or frustrated or overwhelmed or whatever, then ask yourself, is this how things usually feel? Is this how I want things to feel? Can I keep going at this pace? It's not until we actually stop and start asking good questions that we actually start getting answers, and then can take action towards the things that we do want, right? And, for example, why is it that when we have a minute of downtime, whether it's in a drive-through, whether it's in a pickup line, whether it's at the store, whether it's just sitting on our couch, that we have to pick this thing up and start scrolling? It's like,
if we miss anything.
I'm not okay with just being for like 5 minutes or less. It's like, I have to be doing something. And am I really thinking about what this is doing and where it's taking my mind? And we all know, you start this and you intend to only be on for a minute, and then like 20 minutes, an hour goes by and you're like, holy cow, what just happened? So yeah. So just, asking questions, noticing.
Sorry, I do challenge everyone to, maybe not during the holidays or whatever, but when you go back to work, just take one day and write everything you're doing. Like Lissa said, every 15 minutes if you want, or every half an hour. It's going to be demanding, and it's going to be, but I did it, and I realized that I was wasting a lot of times on stuff that did not need to be done,
Yeah.
or, you know, getting off focus so often that one thing would take me so much longer because I'm answering text in between, or my brain goes to, oh, I wonder what happened there. And I grab my phone and I Google, you know,
Yes.
but
Yes.
when
Your
you,
brain is like,
yeah,
yep.
and when you start writing it down at the end of your day, you can be like, really, wow, I really only spent 1 hour cleaning the house.
Mm,
I really only spent an hour or two working and moving things along. And I'm not saying if you have a job, it's, you know, 9 to 5, you're at work, but all of the time that you can choose what you're doing, write it down. And it's crazy. It's crazy,
yeah.
the result. Like,
Right. I think the last key, number one, it's being accountable to yourself, but I think it's also being accountable to someone else.
mhm.
Right. And now I'm just going to say, you may think like your significant other or your kids would be a great person to be accountable for your time, but no. Yeah, right. We both know that doesn't usually work out the way that we want it to, because they're looking at it from their perspective and their needs and their own baggage and their own expectations and, you know, things like that as well. So, you know, having, you know, somebody else in your life, whether, you know, it's a peer, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a community, whether it's a coach, whoever it is, just somebody else who also is saying, yes, I want to be intentional with my time as well. And yeah, I will hold you accountable. Will you hold me accountable? And so that way you're voicing out loud to somebody else, you know, what you're wanting to do, and you're giving them permission to ask you about that. Right. And if they see you posting on social media all the time, like, hey, call me out and say, hey, girl, I thought you were going to limit your social media time. And it feels like you're all, you know, you're commenting on everybody's stuff. What's going on? How are you doing in that area? Right. Like, give them permission to call you out and, you know, and be able to move forward. And, you know, and whenever we're accountable to someone else, we don't want to show up with a big fat zero, right? So if I said, this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to invest this much time in this relationship or this project or whatever it is this week, and then I go to check in with my accountability person, I don't want to say, yeah, I didn't do that, right? So it's a little positive peer pressure to get you, you know, moving in the direction you want to go. So I think that is super, super key. You've got to have a system, but you also have to have support, right? And it's the combination of the two that are really going to help you to see lasting change. Because we can have those, you know, a week or a day or a month that things look really good, but it's just a little blip on the scale, and a blip on the screen, right? But we want to like be like, this is my new norm. Like, this is what I do. Now, not perfectly, right? Like I will say, I'm still working on this, and I'm a time management coach, you know, but the more I go back to my vision, the more I go back to my purpose, the more I go back to the bigger things, and then I turn and look at my time and say, is this reflective of what I say I want? Then I make adjustments and I keep moving forward. And it's about just continuing to check in and not letting so much time go by without checking in those different areas, where then now it becomes way, way harder to try to get back to where you want to be, right?
But even the best coach like you have a coach or an accountability.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Because if we
Yeah.
could have done it on our own, we would have already done it. Right. Like, let's just be honest.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And
we all
that's
need
one
something
thing that I
else.
used to view as authority. I was just like, I don't want accountability. I don't want it. But that's when you have this mentality, it's because you know, you're not going to stick to what you're doing. So you don't want to have to answer to someone. When you intentionally, you know, decide, I want to make this change, yes,
Mhm.
you also need to know that you have this weaker side of you, the little devil on the other shoulder that will tell you, nah, you don't need to do this. So it's accountability is just, and you know what? People get it when we talk about the gym, having an accountability partner for the gym, but it should be in every single area of our life. It's just like so helpful. Lissa, if people want to, you know, reach out to you or follow you, because I know that you also do accountability groups, you offer so much, but how can they reach you?
Yeah. Well, I love sharing value. I love sharing timely tips. I love sharing new ways of thinking about our time and really reflecting on where we are and how we're wanting to use it. So I have a podcast that's called Redeem Her Time. And that would be a great place to go and just get value on a regular basis from there. You're also welcome to head to my website, which is redeemhertime.com. And when you get there, at the very top, there is a free guide to redeem your time in just 5 minutes. Because I think sometimes we think like, I have to do this whole life overhaul and it's going to be all this work and I got to figure out all the things. And really, like, I'm going to show you, give me 5 minutes with this guide and I will give you back hours in your day. Right. Because instead of your brain being squirrel brain and scattered and distracted and buried by all the things that are around you, like you can go, okay, what matters most right now? what am I going to do about it? Right. And get your mindset and your intentions in the right place, and then move forward in that action. So that would be a great place to go. And I also have a community where we talk about these things all the time. So there's information on the website about the Redeem Her Time community and how you can come on in and be intentional and think about these things on a regular basis so you can start making changes.
Exactly. So redeemyourtime.com. Lissa is amazing to follow, honestly. And I'm lucky enough to get her, I wouldn't say your texts are coming at least once a week, but it's always good tips. And it's funny because quite often it's like the thing that I needed to read that day, and I'm like, how does she know? But
it's because I needed it that day too, right? That's usually what's going on. So
no, and I think that the bottom line is because I'm not alone and I'm not that unique. So it's also good to know, that whatever you're going through or you're feeling or whatever, other people are actually going through the same thing. Like, it's not only me. So it's good to feel like, okay, there's someone out there understanding and having the tools to help me. So anyway, Lissa, thank you so much. You're always such a pleasure to have on, and I want you to come back again in 2023. Isn't that crazy to say 2023?
Wow. I just got used to 2022, writing on my checks. I got to figure this out again now.
I know. And 3 for a French girl is hard to say. So I'm going to have to think about it the whole year when I say the date. What would you leave the listeners with, like this one thing that you really want them to leave with?
Yeah. Well, here's what I would say is, what's your one thing, right? Like there's so many areas you're probably right now going, oh gosh, Lissa and Caroline, like I need to revamp this area and this area, and all these things really need all this. But I really want you to say, what's the one thing that if I focus on this first, it will make everything else either easier, unnecessary, or better, right? Because if we try to chase 2 squirrels, we'll catch neither one because they're going to keep us running in circles. But if you are just focusing on that one thing, you are going to be moving in that direction. And here's what you're going to find. It will start having a ripple effect in those other areas, right? And you're going to start trusting yourself and say, wow, I showed up for myself. Like I actually was consistent. I made it past January 17th, right? Or whenever your cutoff, drop off date usually has been. And you're going to start showing up for yourself and those you love in a different way. And you're going to start seeing that have that ripple effect. So start with just your one thing. What's the one thing that I can do right now that would make the biggest difference or make everything else easier or unnecessary? And just focus on doing that first.
Thank you so much. So redeemyourtime.com to reach Lissa Figgins. Thank you everyone for being here again this week. And you know what? I wish you really all the best for 2023. But the thing that I think that I want to wish the most is to find interior peace. Because when we do have that, like everything else is possible. So thank you to all. And Lissa, it was a pleasure having you.
Thanks so much. Have a great year, you guys.